Everyone, it's Thea. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's gonna be a fun video. It's also gonna be heckin' long. So, I'm gonna film a video right after this. We'll redo the garden update. We'll talk about plants because, oh my gosh, our things jumping out of the ground right now. It is insane. You can sit there and pretty much watch them grow. But I wanted to take some time to talk specifically about spring decks because I don't know about you guys, I have spring fever. I have spring fever so bad. I'm like outside soaking up every single droplet of sunshine that I possibly can. I'm a plant. I photosynthesize. I need the sunshine. So I'm getting into the spring season like fervently. It's great. So I wanted to pick some decks that I think go really well with this time of year, just for the kind of energy that they have. Like, these have very spring energy. And I don't think I talked about any of them for fall. I might have one or two of them, but for the most part, these are like my spring vibes decks. These aren't necessarily the ones I'm going to be specifically sticking to throughout spring, but this is just like a handy list if you want to think about the kind of decks that you want to pull out that you already have, or that you are looking for to get those tasty Twitter-pated spring tinglies that we all get this time of year. So, I've got like 25 decks here, which is a lot, and I'm a little overwhelmed by it, but I've divided them into 6 little handy categories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, six little handy categories to kind of compartmentalize each of them really well. So if like the specific deck doesn't like strike your fancy, you can definitely think of a deck in that category and apply it that way, whatever. They're just decks, it's no big deal. We do what we want, it's a fun time. Whew. I had too much coffee today. I don't know. It's just such a nice day. Oh my gosh. So, first category I want to touch on is the one that you think of first when it comes to spring, and that is like full-on earth energy. That like emerging green, that spring green color, the life erupting from the ground. I've got a ton of decks that kind of like plant me nicely in the seat of that energy, and here are some of them. The first one I want to talk about is probably like my #1 oracle deck that of all time. I was in my only 10 decks, and it will always be. This is the Devas of Creation by Silicon Conway. This deck captures the essence of nature in a really energetic way, and it is phenomenal. I love it so much. There is a bit of spaciness going about it as well. There is some cosmic energy, there is some planetary energy, but a lot of it is very connected to the earth, and I love it. I do daily draws with this whenever I'm up here. Maybe not every day, but most days I come, I pull a card, I read the guidebook, and it's just a nice way to focus my energy for the day. The cards are beautiful. They're not obstructed by any giant titles or borders. It's just a painting that feels channeled, and like, I don't want it like channeled. It's like, ugh. It still has a great grasp of earthly energy. You can feel that in all of her decks, even though they seem very sourcey, very like pure energy. She's got a good grasp of the way the energies interact in an earthly way. So it's delicious. This deck is fantastic. And if you liked that kind of abstract oracle, something like this is a great way to just work with earth energy in the spring. So that is the Devas of Creation by Silicon Conway. I'll try not to talk too long about each one of these, or else we will be here until next Tuesday. but yeah, that's that one, and it is a delight, and it is an always fave. So I'm gonna put it back on her spot on the altar space. So following closely behind that one for earth energy, this one doesn't speak as spring to me. This is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. I use this a lot. This is almost a little bit more universal than just straight up spring. This is by Claire Mack. This was her first oracle deck. You can get it on Etsy, but it's just like, it functions like with the Devas of Creation. I use it as not really a divinatory sense, like it's not a clarifier in readings. I don't use it as part of like a spread or an oracle message. I just use it for daily draws. I just use it as a practical tool in like going about my day, what energies to focus on, what energies are going to come up, kind of thing. I guess that's kind of divinatory, but still, like, it's not, I don't do spreads with it yet, but for now it's like an altarpiece. This, I would never do daily draws with this. I don't know why, I just feel like that isn't right. This one accompanies tarot so well. It does its own spreads really well. A 3-card draw with this is great on its own. The way the messages weave together is seamless and simple and straightforward, and the messages like literally jump right out at me. So this is a fantastic deck, and it does have a great earthy energy, which is fantastic for spring. Let's see if I can find some of my favorite cards. Ooh, productivity. That's a funny one. It's like, this is great. You think, oh, productivity, those are worker bees, blah, 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 blah. But like, it's not super bright and happy. Like, there is a shadow side to this card, which needs to be looked at sometimes. Like, why are you trying to be productive at the rate you are? Like, get down to the root of our feelings around productivity. What does it mean to be productive? What is success? That sort of stuff. Anyway, I love this deck. So good. Just helps me think about things. Harmony. There's a wee bit of sacred geometry in here. Not too much, but obstacles. This is a rock. I love it. So good. Okay. So that is the Illuminated Earth Oracle by Claire Mack. Phenomenal. So good. And always fave. Great for spring. The next one in the earthy energy category is, I don't have, most of these are tarots. I think I'm just like banging out most of the oracles right off. I find with this category of earth energy oracles suited a little bit better than straight up tarot, just because it is free to kind of collect all of the energies in their own natural way, as opposed to trying to like wedge them into a tarot system, which is fine. But this is the Wisdom of the Trees Oracle. Anyway, I like trees. I love trees, actually. I don't just like them. I love them. There's a giant oak tree right behind the house that's super old. Acorns every year. Shade. Its leaves take forever to break down. I always find them. They're like leathery even when they're dry. So there's just always evidence of the oak tree around. I love it. It's right next to my shed. It provides shade next to the house. It's beautiful and majestic. I love it. I could talk for hours about my trees, actually. But this is a great way to harness the energy of said trees in an oracle form, and it's nice. So this is a great little tree oracle. This one's super not expensive as well. Let me find the book, make sure I got the name right for you, because that would be embarrassing. Yeah, the Wisdom of the Trees Oracle. So the box looks like this, and again, not expensive. A great way to tap into tree energy. If you just want like a light tree oracle, this is a good one to use alongside tarot. Let's see, hornbeam, date palm. So they're not all North American trees too. They're very all over the place. Olive, look, it's got an owl in it. Here's Athena. We love her. Yep, and the little oil lamp. There's a feather. There's lots going on. Beautiful. I love this. Yeah, that card's great. There's the Cedar of Lebanon. That one's got some very interesting information about it as well. Yews are very mystical trees. I have a couple planted. They had some tip burn this winter. I'm going to need to do some pruning. But a yew is a very important tree to have in your garden, I personally feel. I read somewhere or heard somewhere, Eden specifically there's a number of trees that you're supposed to have in order to reflect the concept of Eden or whatever. I forget exactly how it was worded. Yew is one of them. Citrus, pomegranate, cypress, and what was another, and fruit tree, like apples, pears, and other fruiting trees as well. Like, and then there's like layers. They're supposed to like towards the center. I think the pomegranate is the center one. An olive for sure is on the list. But anyway, yes, I'm close. I'm getting there. I've got my fruit. I need a pomegranate. I have citrus. I've got lemons and oranges growing in the house because we live in Canada, and I've got yews, and I've got the closest. I've got a cypress. It's like a close cousin of Arbovita. I need to look into that one, but I need a pomegranate and an olive. I tried to grow olives one time. They didn't sprout, so I need to try again, but I'm like, it's desperate for an olive tree. Anyhow, fun side story. This is Monterey pine, hawthorn, elm. Elm trees are great. Now, elm trees, we lost most of them around here. It's really sad. Dutch elm disease came and killed most of our elm trees, and then our ash trees are now absolutely being decimated by the emerald ash borer. So it's really devastating to sit here and watch all of our, like, these are like the big old trees in the area, because like Canada is only recently settled, like historically speaking. Like, most people can count a couple generations back to when their family actually came here. It's really not that long. So all of the trees that otherwise would have been planted by humans in a decorative way are there's a bunch of them that have short lifespans that are getting kind of old and or dying because of these diseases, which is really devastating. And then all the other ones are like recently planted. It's a weird country to live in. All the trees are baby. But it's just an interesting way to look at time, the lifespan of a tree versus the lifespan of a human. And anyway, it breaks my heart when I see like an entire species being completely wiped out. Very sad. Anywho, that's about the elm tree. Anyway, I should probably stop talking about trees, or else this video will only be about trees. But the tree oracle, the backs could use a bit of, like, it's got very fall backs, but like trees in general are spring energy for me. Well, they're sturdy and year long, but I tend to pay the most attention to them in the spring when they're like waking up again. So anywho, that is the Wisdom of the Trees oracle. Who did it by? That'd be a good question. Jane Struthers is the author of that one. I'll do my best to try and remember authors, but you know how it is. Another super earthy deck that falls into this category for spring is this one, which we all know and love, Herbcrafter's Tarot. Now this one I had to go searching for because it lives in my kitchen. Most of my tarot decks are either in this room or my like officey, desky bedroom space downstairs. And this one and a handful of others live in weird places. This one lives in my cabinet next to my spices. Made sense to me, that's where I want it. If I want to do readings about ingredients and herbs, I tend to do them in the kitchen, believe it or not, when I'm like preserving vegetables in the fall, or you know, doing some seed sowing in the kitchen. I never want this up here. Sorry, dog. I never want this when I'm up here. I want this when I'm in the kitchen, so it lives in the kitchen. But this is a really great herbal deck. I don't actually own all that many plant-based decks because I'm super picky. They have to be perfect or else I won't like them, and this one is. This is a great way to assimilate the ideas of tarot in with herbal properties, and it is so well done. I would not to toot one's own horn here, but I do know a fair bit about plants, and this deck is in fact teaching me things. It's not just your standard associations. This is giving practical advice. This is giving the history of its use in ritual in different cultures. It's the way that the herbs have been categorized in the different, like all of the, you know, page, knight, queen, kings. Each one has a specific shared property with all of the other pages, knights, queens, and kings. This deck is absolutely phenomenal. I love the readings are just so, they just attach my feet firmly to the ground, and I love it. The art's also beautiful. So this is by the same creator as the next one I'm going to talk about, Very Earth Energy. Let's have a look-see. Yeah, Joanna Powell Colbert did the art, and Letitia Guthrie did the guidebook, and it's really well done. It's fantastic. The associations are perfect. The artwork is delicious. It looks like photographs, but it's hand drawn. So anyway, this one gives me very like alive spring earthy vibes, and that one is a great one to bust out this time of year if you haven't touched it in a while. I know a lot of us have this. No, a ton of us have this. Don't forget you have this. Bust it out. This is a gem. Like this is a tarot classic. It will be going down in history as one of those tarot decks that just does great things. So in that train of thought, the Joanna Powell Colbert deck, which I'm sure you all know, is the Gaian Tarot. Now this one almost leans a bit summery for me. Like this one makes me feel a lot more of the warmth of the sun and the connective energy that kind of brings with it. The liveliness of gatherings and get-togethers. This is a very human deck, whereas that one, the only humans in it are hands, and that's only in the court cards. So this one has a lot more presence of humans, so it almost leans a bit summery. So if I do a summer deck video, this will probably 100% be in it, but just because of its really strong earth energy, it's perfect for this time of year also. So it's gonna slide in as both. But this is fantastic. The suits are all elements, which we know I read that way. The guidebook is great, but I found I could just kind of, this is a great one that I just picked up and started reading. Like I didn't need the guidebook. I go to the guidebook occasionally, but for the most part, the meanings I got were similar enough to kind of be like, okay, I kind of already know this deck, even though it's new for me, which was a weird experience, but it's delightful. It has a ton of age diversity, body diversity, like cultural diversity. It's got everything. It didn't seem like it was trying specifically to be diverse, but it just happened to be, because that's just at its core, that's what humanity is. It reflects the world in such an authentic way. It doesn't feel like it's trying too hard. It just is. And when working with it, it's just such a different feel to most other decks. It's like this deck has been places and seen things, and it feels like love. I guess that's the best way I could say it. This deck feels like love. So if you're looking for a deck that feels like love and in a very earthy type of way, this is fantastic. Oh, that's a Two of Cups. I love it. Okay, so that is the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert. So one more in this last earthy category, then we'll move on to the next category. This one it was like a last minute edition. I wasn't super sure about it, but then I was flipping through and I'm like, you know what, this works pretty well. This would also easily fall into the next category as well. This kind of bridges the gap between the two. But this is the Tarot of the Drowning World by Conan Selznick. Dr. Feldermaus Workshop, I think is German for bat? Yeah, that's bat. Bat Workshop. Anyway, they did the Carnival at the End of the World deck, and this is their newer one. And it's a photography deck. So this is another beautiful art deck. It's on that lovely slippy slidey linen cardstock that the Pagan Otherworld is on. It smells the same too, which, to be honest, I absolutely love the smell of it. And it's a longer deck. It's a good size, and it's in the Marseille tradition, so it's interesting. So it's like Pipish, but it's not. They say it's in the Marseille tradition, and it's numbered the way Marseille is, and it kind of has that vibe about it, especially in the majors. But the minors are just pips. They're not like arranged specifically like Marseille minors are. You'll see. I'll show you some cards. There's the Magician there. But it's called Tarot of the Drowning World. The guidebook has a very climate-y slant to it, much like the Carnival at the End of the World deck does. It's all hand-placed greenery in a pool of water, and it's kind of really haunting and really interesting. Definitely a strange one to work with. Yeah, so here's some minors. So this is not an arrangement of a Marseille, what is it? 5. That's 5 of Wands. So it's a pip deck, but it's great. I've got reversals in here too. You can kind of see the tops are rounded, which is nice. That was one thing I was excited about, because most of my Marseille decks, I don't put reversals in because some of the cards, it is literally impossible to tell if they're upside down or not. Like, there is no subtle difference. Sometimes like one's touching further at the top, but like sometimes some of them they're just not. But because of the shape and the nature of the images, I can read reversals in this particular Marseille deck, which is exciting. But this is a very springy vibe, flowers, water, outsideness, earthiness, and it's pretty. And it kind of has as an air of spring about it, even though a lot of the flowers are summer flowers, because those are all dahlias. But anyway, it's gorgeous, it's neat, it is. I haven't worked with it a ton, so I can't give you like a super in-depth review of how it reads per se, other than if you've got a grasp of the Marseille, it'll read kind of like a Marseille deck, which if you read Marseille you kind of know, that means just like your brain kind of goes everywhere a little bit more easily than being trapped in the scenicness of a scenic deck, so it'll read a bit more like that, but yeah. There's a chariot. Oh, and the titles on the bottom are in French. You know if you can see them or not. They're down there. Small letters. But anyway, it's gorgeous. It is a work of art, and I treat it a lot more like a work of art at this point than a working deck. But that may change. That may not change. But it's delightful. This one came into my life by accident, actually. I didn't... It got shipped to me by mistake. I had ordered the Carnival at the End of the World, and this one showed up instead. But hey, I'm happy to have it. It is beautiful and excellent, and slips nicely into this springtime of year. So the next category, I'm making tarot towers, and they're gonna fall down. I foresee it. The next category is just a cute little category, and this is decks that are springy but pretty. So like I said, that last one kind of slides into this category really nice. They're not like super deep. Well, one of them's kind of deep, but the other ones are not super deep, but they just have like that slight air of a springy vibe to them. I'm gonna say vibe a lot in this video. I'm gonna try to limit it. Anyway, I'll try and use better words, but these decks have that slight air of springiness about them without being super deep, so I'll just show you a couple. This one is one I couldn't not grab for spring in a spring deck palooza, and this is the Botticelli Tarot, and this is by Alessandrov Atanisov, the same one who did the Bosch Tarot and the Klimt Tarot, and then the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. This one is a kind of compilation deck using Botticelli's art and retrofitted the tarot system, and you know I love it. It just gives the essence of a garden party. There's mythological themes. Yeah, lots of Aphrodite. There's satyrs. There's all sorts of fun. Mars and Venus show up too. Yeah, there's Mars there. What a guy! I just mentioned him. He showed up. But it's a nice, fun one. I read it just like I read all of my other art decks. The retrofit to the tarot system type art decks, like the Duloc, like the Rackham, Chicoli to a point. We'll talk about that later. But I just kind of, for the most part, rely heavily on my own internal meanings of each tarot card, and then pull from the card in front of me what I feel I need to. But the card itself isn't holding the meaning of the tarot. It's just kind of like a little mini prompt for me, which is my favorite way to read. It's great. I don't know if that made any sense. It made sense in my head. But anywho, this deck is very spring. It's delicious. Low Scarabeo size, low Scarabeo cardstock, a couple of languages at the top, which, you know what I like? It's inclusive. I said it. Love the extra languages, but anywho, I vegged it in black. Okay, so this is something that I also I just want to slide this in here, just as like a kind of annoying side tangent. If you're gonna put black borders on the front, I love them. They're great. Put black borders on the back, so when I edge it, it looks amazing. When there's a different color border from the front to the back, it makes choosing an edge color literally impossible. If it's white on the front and back, I usually just leave it. It usually looks fine like that. But if it's like there's a white border on the front and like a no border or a black border on the back, it just doesn't, I just can't pick a edging color because it's gonna bleed on one of the other sides and it just drives me up the wall. So this is my favorite, when there's a black on the front, black on the back, and it just, tasty and delicious. It's a very shallow take, but that's okay. That's how I feel. Anyway, the Botticelli Tarot is a delightful little spring deck, and I am excited to bust that one out. The next one in the they're pretty and springy category is the Tarot de Carlotides, which I think I learned is how you say it. It's a Fournier deck, which means it's a Spanish deck, and I think it's pronounced Carlotides instead of Carlotides, which is what I've been calling it for, I don't know, as long as I've had it. So this cute little deck just radiates like pastels for spring, groundbreaking kind of feeling. Like it's just freaking pretty. Like the backs, that's spring. That is a nice walk in the garden. Anyway, it's a delight. I'm gonna move a bit closer because it's a tiny one. But look at those. Is that not spring? They're horses with sticks tied to their heads. What a great 5 of Wands. Anyway, this is fun. Spring. Spring. Very spring. Yeah. Anyway, so this one, it's just a handy, great little fun reader. I don't put a lot of pressure on this one to give me deep and insightful readings. Other than that would come up naturally. Like I don't, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that if I have a certain particular deep problem, I'm not gonna grab for this one in the hopes that its content, other than it being a tarot, will help me solve said problem. This is fun. This is like a whimsical, fun, no pressure, no stress, you know, day out in the garden after you've done all the work kind of deck. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to say it. Oh, look at that. 2 of Swords. Look at it. You know I love a bit of duality in my life. Nice. So good. This is a good springy one too. Look, there's some thistles on there. Tasty. This one's hilarious. Fish and vodka. Okay, I'll take it. Oh, and she's beautiful. Just like a little bit of classical art there for funsies. So great. Anywho, this is a very tasty and delicious spring deck. And would recommend if you're looking for that kind of, it's pretty spring feels kind of deck. The last one in the It's Pretty category is is this one. It's kind of a little bit more than just it's pretty. I like this deck a lot. I've had this deck for a long time. I've got the bigger version. This is the little version just because it takes up less space on my table at the moment. It is the Dreams of Gaia Tarot by Raven Phelan, and this is a deck that, like I said, I've had for a really long time, and it gives me the feeling of spring. I guess this card in particular is the Maiden. There's a little bunny and flowers and everything. And oh, this is my dude. Hi, bud. This is the Ace of Earth. Again, this is another deck where the suits are the elements. So I almost read that more easily than I do Cups, Wands, Swords, and Pentacles, which is funny. But anyway, this guy shows up every time. He's like never far. I don't know how he does it, but he does. But that's my little dude. So yeah, love that. But this deck it just gives me spring energy. The way it reads is really gentle, and I guess in a more psychological way too. So if you're looking on doing a little bit of, you know, personal development work in the spring, this is a good deck for it. I will say the guidebook on the mini version is not nearly as substantial as the big one. However, if I'm doing a bigger spread, I don't want to read like 5 pages for each card. Like say I pull 10 cards, I will be there all day reading that giant guidebook. So this is actually kind of handy for the bigger spreads. Each card has bullet points, which is nice because it really simplifies it. It lets you get those rapid fire meetings a little bit faster if you're doing a bigger spread. But at the same time, if you've got the time and you want to put the work in, you want to do a bit of journaling, you want to get all the bits out, grab for the big book in the other one, because like there is a little keyword section at the top which is kind of similar to that in the big book, but I don't know, I'm tempted to read the whole thing if I'm there and I've got the big one in my hand. But if you're doing the work, I highly recommend going through and reading the big guidebook instead of this little one. Oh, there's Queen of Pentacles. Isn't she beautiful? It's just stunning. I love this deck, and it's a great deck for spring. And I will say, if you haven't heard of it before, it's a tarot in that it has suits and court cards and a major arcana, but the major arcana kind of lines up with the tarot. There's extra cards. I think there's like 25 or 26 major arcana cards, if you include the first one, which is choice, which is like our Fool. But yeah, a lot of them are named differently. So it's kind of like a tarot oracle hybrid, but especially in the small book version, it reads more like a tarot, less like an oracle. But some days I feel like it's more of an oracle. So it really it depends on how I'm feeling. It's a nice all-purpose type of deck. It's fun and beautiful and great for spring. So that is the Dreams of Gaia. I do reach for it a lot. It's a comfort and a joy. And I like comfort and joy in springtime. So that's it's pretty category for spring. Now on to something a little bit more deep, per se. I don't know. It's spring, and you know what spring means? Spring means it's time to work with the fae. I'm outside, I'm in the garden, I feel it in my bones. It is time to connect with the fae. So this is probably by far my biggest pile of fae decks. And on tippy top of that pile, which I will not linger on too long, is the Brian Froud Fairies Oracle. This one, if you feel the connection to fae, this is the one. This is the one for you. So Brian Froud does the artwork, and the guidebook is written by Jessica Macbeth. I've talked about this a bunch of times, and I probably will continue to forever because it is great. This is the most authentic and pure fae energy deck that I have. It feels like being in the woods, surrounded by them, and them connecting to you. It feels like they are communicating and connecting as you're using this deck, and it's a weird thing to try and describe, especially if you've set it up in a way, like if you're reading with it outside, take it with you out into the woods, have a moment, light a candle, do the thing. It is nothing short of magic, is all I can say about it. Like, as a full-grown, mature adult, this deck is nothing short of magic, and I would not be without it. So, especially this time of year, when the fae are stirring as they are. The next one on the list is just a quick surface reader. This is the Tarot of the Secret Forest. This one is just weird because it doesn't really have real backs. So the backs of this deck are basically black and white versions of the fronts of the deck, which I don't really use. I was thinking of rebacking it, but that would absolutely ruin its shuffleability and thickness, and I quite like its size and shape at the moment, so I'm just dealing with it. I just kind of ignore the backs, but it's just a little cute kind of dark and spooky fairy deck, which is kind of how I like them. Like, you know, I'm not like a Victorian flower fairy type of girl. I like a little bit of darkness. I like a little bit of trickery. I like a little bit of that ominous energy that comes with them, because they're not all love and light all the time. They're a dynamic and very complex energy to work with, I guess. So this is a handy little tarot deck to throw along next to the Fairies Oracle, or just read with on its own. So it gives it's specific tarot meanings. So with the Brian Froud Fairy Oracle, each one of those fae have a backstory, have a personality, are a character that you get to know. It's a very interactive deck. This one, there isn't. It's just a picture of one on top of a tarot card meaning. So it works nicely because then you're not bombarded by a whole bunch of different fae personalities when you're doing a reading. So you get your tarot messages from this, and then you're introduced to a fae based on the energy of the situation, and it works really nicely together. So that is Tarot of the Secret Forest, a nice little Scarabeo deck that I have edged in black as well. That does not come like that. The next great fae deck for spring, this is a classic. Like, where would I be if it were not for this deck? And this is Tarot of the Sidhe. This deck has given me the spookiest experiences with the fae that I've ever had. So how the Fairies Oracle gives me the connection with the fae, this is my most like experiential deck. So this deck makes things happen. I don't know how to say it. I sound weird saying it, but it gives me the cards I'm thinking about, basically. It's like, we know what's going on in your head, and we're gonna reiterate it for you, basically. It's almost like it's saying, like, why did you even come to me? You know the answer, but here it is anyway. And I've had some really weird experiences with it in that way. Like, when I was just listening to music and I was, like, casually pulling cards, like one does, and then the cards started to line up with the content of the song as it was singing. Like, it was singing about the moon, and the moon came up, and then it was singing about, like, dreams and stuff, and then the High Priestess came up, and it just, like, it was really weird. And then I thought, oh, it would be strange if as it's singing this comes up, and then boom, and then it did, and I just had to put it away because I was being, like it was teasing me. I was being teased by this deck. So this is, like, pure trickster fae energy. So I must be careful with it. But I love using it. It's fantastic. So, Tarot of the Sidhe does not mess around, but it's fun. And I think what I need to do is hold a certain amount of reverence for it while also keeping a playful attitude towards it, because, you know, meet the energy where it is, right? Like, don't try and fight it, don't try and change it, just meet it where it is, and should have a good relationship with it. So that's how I kind of work with fae myself. Appreciate the trickery. Everybody loves a good jape now and then, and, you know, but be respectful in the process. So that's the Tarot of the Sidhe by Emily Carding. Sorry, Emily Carding is the creator of that one. So that was classic. Great, good to know. The next fae deck for spring is the Tarot of the Hidden Realm, which is a very different kind of fae energy. This one I'm still getting to know. I feel like this one is almost too human. I don't know, that's weird. It has like a human slant to it. So this deck, the guidebook is by Barbara Moore, and I think the artwork is by Julia Jeffries. That sounds about right. It feels more people-y than the other fae decks, which are like very much a different creature. Maybe it's just the art style, but I think a lot of it is in just the scenarios and the way it is written, that the fae in this deck are closer to humans than all of these other ones, to be quite honest. But I still like it. It's nice. It's gonna take a bit of sussing, and I don't know if it's gonna be my primary fae deck, but it's just nice to have, and it's very gentle. It's like a, you know, your cousins from a different land kind of deck. I don't know. It does have some animal representation as the aces, which I think it's only 4, so it's no big deal. I'm not an animal deck person. You will not find animal decks on this list. So I have to be very careful with the amount of like pure animal energy represented, or else I can't read a deck. And I think that's just there's a mental block somewhere. I just can't do it. We'll get there one day. If they're alongside plants, then I can kind of work with it, but it is gentle and nurturing while being otherworldly as well, but still, it's still firmly rooted in humanity. Like, I can feel the touch of a human as I'm working with this one a lot more than the other ones. But it's early days, so we'll talk more about it later. But a great one for spring if you like Fae energy and want something a little bit closer to the human experience, I guess. So, Tarot of the Hidden Realm. 2 more in this category. The next one is just a quick one. This is another oracle deck. This is the Magic of the Old Ways Oracle by Naomi Cormack. There's the little guidebook because I don't actually use too much. And this is just a cute little oracle deck with very pagan Celtic symbolism on it, with a nice straightforward generic keyword, handy to use. Feels very Fae, but it feels very rooted in nature, as well as offering lots of different perspectives on one's place. And this is one that is, like, I'm not going to pull this out just for like a general inquiry reading. This is more when I'm dealing with, say, spiritual development, as opposed to just like personal development in a human context. Like this one. Had him a couple times come up. Mr. Green Man, but the art is beautiful. I just can't. The art is just so pretty. So, yeah. It's a great one to help work alongside Fae. I don't like this one on its own. I won't just pull this one on its own. I need tarot to kind of back it up to get the message out of it, per se. But that is the Old Ways Magic Oracle. That's what it's called. Great for spring. Probably summer too, but a fun time. Okay, one more left and then 2 categories and then we'll call it a day. This last one is my last Fae deck, and it is the Forhaxa Tarot by MJ Coulinet. This deck is probably the closest to like Victorian fairy energy of all of the ones that I have. It smells tasty. The reason it smells tasty is because I anointed it with a nice oil mix that I concocted myself. It's got very earthy, tree-y notes to it. Very cypress, very sandalwood, very pine, cedar. That kind of aroma to it. It's great. It smells like the woods. And I edged it myself in this fun teal color, but backs, fronts, which is probably mostly what you care about. But again, this is the Fae deck. So this is the tarot deck, so it's a tarot structure, and it's its own world, but it's a Fae world. So it exists outside of the realm of humanity, which this feels very not in the realm of humanity. Occasionally there's a card with a portal through to the not real world, but like our world, and you can kind of run with that as you work with the Fae. But I love the art. I love that it's the tarot, which is just an infinite combination of possibilities. And it's very springy, but it doesn't shy away from the darkness either. Like, it'll hit you. The death card. Very sad. There's a few cards that are like, oomph, right in the feels, but they all have little like mini vignettes and stories about them. There's a few storylines that kind of run between cards, but it doesn't deter from the like independent meaning of each of those cards, which is good. But quite like this one. This is just a delight to use in springtime. You know I love my Fae energy. So those are my top Fae decks for spring. Which probably could have been its own bloody video, but I'm lumping it all together because that's how I do. But yeah, the Forhaxa Tarot by MJ Coulinet. And that is the end of our Fae adventure for now. The next category I want to talk about, we'll do the short one and then the long one, is just a quick little talk about inner child work. In the spring, it's time. It's time to bring out little me and have some serious chats with her about stuff. It's kind of what I do. It's how like last year we went there, and I feel like this year we're going to be going right back in. So a couple of spring decks for inner child work are important. Reclaim Oracle is one of those. This is by the same creator as the Lilifer Tarot, Marion Costentin. And this is an oracle deck that is basically an emotion wheel in a deck form, and it's just really great. I don't use this on its own. I usually pair it with the tarot. Tarot here will show you momentarily, but it is just pure feels is what it is. So if you're confused about how you feel about something, if you're unsure, it's just a great way to kind of fish around your emotions, and like it pokes and prods until it hits on something that's like, oh yeah, that thing, right? So it helps you learn about yourself in an explorative way, and you can happen to come upon things that you didn't know you felt until you were prompted to feel it. And that's what this deck kind of does. So it's like you know when you go to the dentist and you're like, my teeth are fine, and then he starts like poking around with a stick, and then he like jabs you in a cavity you didn't know you had? That's exactly what this deck does, but in not a scary going to the dentist kind of way, in like a nice and gentle kind of way. And you're the one holding the poker, so as soon as you poke it, you go, okay, and you can stop poking it and then think about it, and then you can slowly go back to poking it very gently again, and then figure out how to scrape it out, and then pack it full of filling at your own time. This is a weird analogy. I don't know why I went there, but anyway, this will be like the dentist deck in the best possible way, but you're the dentist working on your own teeth. Anyway, wow. That's the Reclaim Oracle. I'm just gonna leave that at that. It doesn't need any more description. There's a confusion. Yeah, that's what just happened. But anyway, yes, my dentist analogy stands. That is the Reclaim Oracle. The tarot deck that I use it with usually is the Beast. This is the Nicoletta Ciccoli Oracle. No, Tarot. And now this doesn't work for everybody. For inner child work, some people are just like, it doesn't work for me. I come at this as like tarot is secondary to it. The messages that I am looking to receive from these cards are in the images in a more intuitive way, which is funny because most of my other decks I don't read like that, but this one I do. The tarot meaning is secondary to the meaning I get from the images, which is really important, I think, when I'm doing inner child work, because it just helps to get to the root of the situation and kind of helping me explore things that happened to me, experiences that I went through as a child, teen, young adult, that didn't really get resolved within myself, for myself. And it kind of gives myself the agency again to take control of how I remember these things. I'll flip through cards while I'm talking. I do not need to be looking at the devil the whole time. But it gives me the agency to really think about these things and work on them in a way that I can give myself some closure, basically. So with the Reclaim, doing the poking around, and then this one kind of narrowing the focus of the field based on the questions asked. It does really powerful things, and I think these two, and then this last one I'll talk about, maybe not so much it, but these two together just, it's a lot. And I don't do inner child work a lot. I think there's a reason I do it in the spring when it's beautiful outside and the weather's nice and the world seems like a nice, lovely, and exciting, happy place, because it sets me up for success, as opposed to doing inner child work in like the depths of the bleakest winter when I'm just asking to be thrown into a deep depression for months on end. So springtime and inner child work just go hand in hand for me, and these are the kind of decks that I use to do it. So I'll show you a few more cards of this one. This is the nice Los Scarabeo deck. And you might find the images uncomfortable, and maybe that's for a reason. You might be turned off completely and just don't want to work with it, which is totally fine. Everybody comes to this deck when they're ready, and some move it on, and some, you know, treasure it forever as an extremely valuable tool for personal development. So it's definitely not just a clone and not just a like retrofit art style deck. It is its own beast. So that is the Wolfe Tarot. And then the little guy that lives in the inner child bag with that one is my Jasmine Beckett Griffith and Lucy Cavendish Alice deck. And this is just if I'm having a hard time with these two getting to like the meat of what it's talking about, this is way more specific. So this puts a focus. So, and it's just based on the keywords and the write-up of the content of the deck, less so the art. So this one here is impossible things, working through disbelief, imaginative leaps, and a fresh perspective. This one is a moment's regret, nostalgia, idealizing the past, and fearing you've made a mistake. So you can see how something like that would relate to how you're working with inner child stuff quite well, and gives you a jumping off point, and then you can kind of dive in with the Nicoletta deck and the Reclaim Oracle from there. So usually I'll grab one of these and then just kind of, you know, go for a swim, so to speak, with the other two decks. If I'm in a place where I'm just unsure where to start, basically. So it's a good jumping off point. Who in the world are you? Getting to know the new you, which begs the question, who were you? You know, that kind of stuff. Use your time well, make every moment count. Such a curious dream, grounding, returning to reality, and coming home. So again, this one brings to mind perspective. How much are you misremembering? What is going on? What was the reality of the situation? Not necessarily from the eyes of a child, but looking back as an adult. What happened? No, and so on and so forth. I can keep going. But anyway, this deck is handy if I need a jumping off point to kind of work with inner child stuff. So this combo is invaluable this time of year, and I'm not gonna say I look forward to doing it, but it's something I definitely need to do and will be doing with these decks. So, oh, that is the little inner child bundle. We're on to the last category. So far we've had the earthy, grounded, like very like earth energy spring decks. We've had the, just because they're pretty, decks. We've had the Fae, we've had Inner Child, and now the last category is kind of a special category, and it's kind of like a unique to me category, but you might resonate with it, so I'm just going to throw it out into the world, or not, why not? By now you probably know I have an ongoing love affair with Greece and Greekness in general. Greek culture, past and present Greek history. I'm enamored. So springtime for me brings back those feelings, and these decks specifically hone in on them. These are my Greek decks. Not that they are Greek, but they bring me back to the state of mind that I was in while I was in Greece, and help me work with the like Greek deities when I'm working with Greek deities, or with the emotions I was feeling, like really trying to figure out why I'm so connected to this energy. But anywho, so these are them. First one is gonna be a bit of a shocker. I don't mean that in like a sarcastic, oh I know what's coming sort of way, but in a what the heck are you talking about kind of way. This is the Morgan Greer. Now, this deck by Bill Greer from like the 70s was created by an American in America, and it's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. So you're probably asking, what on earth are you talking about, woman? Well, something about the art style of this deck. This is Greece. The guys with mustaches, the skin color, the views in the background, the cypress trees, like the mountains and the ocean. That's what Greece looks like, guys. So this deck to me, when I'm reading with it, it it feels like I'm there. Like, she's Greek. Look at her. She's Greek. She's Greek. There's another one that I was like, maybe not so much. I don't get the most snow ever, but ocean, mountains, you know. It's Greek. That could be Aries right there. Look at him. Like this one, that is Greece. We've got a garden, we've got mountains, like you're up high, you're looking out over the cliff edge at the water, there's gardens, roses and lilies. This is Greece in the springtime. It's what it feels like to me. Even the color of the sky reminds me of the color of the sea on a nice bright shiny day. Look at the chariot. Look at his mustache. That man, that's a Greek man. A blonde Greek man, but a Greek man. This could be Charon. Carrying you across the river Styx. The cypress trees in the background. That's got psychopomp vibes, yeah? Yeah. The wilderness. Look, it's just... that's late afternoon sun, Panormus Beach. Anyway. This may not resonate with anybody else in the world but me, but it does, and this deck just reminds me of being in Greece. Particularly in like the morning, usually. There's a few cards that give me like afternoon Greece vibes, but most of them are like that beautiful like 8, 9 a.m. Sun's just coming up over the mountain. It lights up the water and it's all sparkly and it's just, ooh, it just makes me so happy. So, I love that one for that. So that's Morgan Greer. The next Greek deck, again, this one is probably not a surprise. This is the Red Sea Tarot. I talked about this ad nauseum in my last monthly recap video. I'll show you a few of the cards. This is based on the Eleusinian Mysteries. This is by Linda Hill. Tarot deck. There's also 3 accompanying oracles. I could have brought them out, but this video is too long as it is. But it is a tarot deck that fits really nicely into the Persephone myths, which springtime is when she comes back. We missed her. It is Persephone time. So this is a great deck for connecting with spring energy that way. Like this one. Also in the fall when she goes away, you can whip this out then, but I think she fits firmly into now, the pomegranate season. But anyway, we love it. So that is a Red Seas Tarot. If you're curious, check out that other video. Also, there's a few others on TarotTube about it. But it is great and it is a fun one to work with in the springtime if you are looking for Demeter and Persephone energy, if you are looking for spring Greece vibes. This one is the one for you. Another Greek deck. This is my Deste deck. Now this deck is in my Greek deck category because it is Greek. Deste is a Greek-Turkish divination system that is different to any system I've ever worked with. It's a little bit like Sibylla, but not really. It's definitely its own thing. But put sandalwood in the box. Oh, that smells so good. Okay. There's the backs. That's Miss Deste Katina. Anywho, it's just like it's a vintage, very fortune tellery type divination system, and the guidebook and the titles are actually in Greek. So we've got a bit of landscape action going on there, and that is I've Dromos. I don't know what Dromos is. Camel? I'll have to like my Greek is okay, but I haven't got to grips with this deck just yet. Bera, I think is ring. Dinero, I think. Helios! I know that one, that's the sun. There he is. Helios. But yeah. Gramma. I think that's letter. Porta. That's a door. I know that one. So anyway, a bit of work is needed. I need to go through the guidebook, and like I said, the guidebook's in Greek, so I'll need to do some translating. Google Translate is my favorite, but anywho. So, Deste. Greek deck. Spring would be a good time to work with that one. Anyway, yeah, it's got suits, different elements as well. So also, Kelly at The Truth and Story has a very good video on Deste, which I really need to go back and watch. That'll probably give me a nice refresher on that one. But I think she has the Turkish copy. Because yeah, there's one in Turkish and there's one in Greek. I have the Greek one. But anywho, a fun divination system. That's my one Deste deck. Okay, three more decks. This one is just a quick little fun oracle deck that gives me Greek energy in a very surface level kind of way. So it's called the Amoret Psyche Oracle. It's by Lo Scarabeo, and it is not very many cards. Lo Scarabeo, if you could do me a favor and put at least 10 more cards in all your oracle decks, thanks. Drives me mad that there's only like 39, maybe not even, like 35 cards in a Lo Scarabeo oracle deck. But anywho, this deck is basically just a love oracle, a relationship oracle, and it is slightly modern. So it has very modern scenarios in it, but it's like dressed up in Greek mythology, which is kind of fun. So the art style is very classical, which it just is fun for me. I like that. I don't use it all that often because, to be frank, as I've been married for 5 years, I've been with the same guy for like 15. I'm not doing a whole lot of love readings, to be quite honest, for myself, but I have done a few for other people, and this is just a great, like, center focus for a love reading, or just to flourish on top of the end of a tarot one. So it's just a nice, you know, it's pretty. Yeah, the art, man. There is diversity, maybe not body diversity so much as gender and cultural diversity, but it's beautiful. So kind of, it starts off with like the new love, and it helps you kind of bring your best self to a relationship in that sort of situation, and then later on it gets into stuff like balance and secrets and death. We've got an Eros and Thanatos card. There is like the odd mention of Greek gods in the titles, but like nothing in the guidebook has anything to do with Greek mythology. There's just like a, you know, a basic buzzwordy dressed up as a Greek mythology deck kind of thing. So yeah, number 23, jealousy and possessiveness. What else we got? The sweetest taboo. It's about doing things that are slightly, you know, off the beaten path, so to speak, which is fun. Very Greek. The warrior of love, full intimacy. It's about, yeah, surrendering yourself, unrequited desire. It does kind of help with accepting your place in a relationship and maybe what you can do to help get to where you want to be, less of just like a full-on predictive, like, is he thinking about me, is he gonna call me kind of thing, you know? So yeah, loving yourself. So it's I like its perspective. The lady who waits, that's a good one. Taking the plunge. It gives you the agency again. It's not just like leaving the fate in the hands of another. It's you. It is about your perspective. You have control over your own life, and this is how to make the most of it in a relationship context. So fun deck. Wish it had more cards, because it is like, it's the kind of deck that I would like more of. It'd be great if there was another 10, 20 cards in here. Mrs. makes a 90 card oracle deck for herself because she just can't get enough. Speaking of which, actually, we'll save that one for the end. The second to last is my Philarkos Tarot, and you guys know that this deck just gives me all of the Mediterranean feels, and I don't know why, but it does. Well, I do know why. Philarkos being the mystics that would go into caves to kind of reflect on the human existence, in theory. Not proven, because it is all veiled in mystery, which is part of the reason I love it so much. But this is such a good dreamy deck. The contents of the guidebook gives me very Mediterranean feels. It was created with that part of the world in mind. There are a few deities that pop up, Mercury / Hermes being one. He shows up quite a bit in here. So I'm going to be busting this out real soon. Actually, there he is. My boy. And yeah, working with it in that way, because I've got some fun Hermes plans starting in May. Very excited. So this is one I'm definitely going to be working with this spring. I'll show you some more cards as I wax poetic. But it is wonderful. It is mind-bending. It is freeing. It is relaxing and gentle while being confronting. And it takes you on an adventure through your own life, I guess is the best way to say it. And for me, it has that very like romantic mythological air about it that's just so delicious. So some of the minors are a little bit on like the simply drawn pip, not pippish because there isn't really pips in it, but it's a different style. There are various different styles of art that kind of weave themselves through the deck in a very intentional and poignant way. And it's... This deck is great. Would not be without it. So that's the Flower Coast Tarot by Carmen Sorrenti, and in love always and forever. And this is a great one to bust out in springtime, doing dream work, personal development stuff. You want to romanticize your own life. This beast, beautiful, is poetry in like tangible form. Love that. And the last deck on our spring Decapalooza in my Greek category, if you can guess, put your guess down in the comments below. This is my Hellenic Oracle deck, and you know I had to bust it out. So if I'm doing any kind of deity work, if I'm doing any kind of just a general oracle reading, if I want to put a nice cap on the top of a big reading that I've done already, if I'm just looking for some guidance throughout my day, this deck has me covered. It is delicious. I love it. So I made this deck. I'm sure you're sick of me talking about it, but this is a oracle deck that is based around the Greek pantheon of gods, as well as a few splashes of humans and places thrown in for good measure. It is landscape and classical painting, and it is labeled in Greek and transliterated to English for you. There is no guidebook. You must look up the god on your own time and get to know them, form a relationship with them, you know, do your thing. There's Theia. Harmonia there, but it's just, I'm really glad with how this turned out. It's such a well-rounded deck. And I intended it to be balanced, but it just turned out to be super well-rounded, and the combinations of cards just take me places. It's like I'm journeying with them. It's like I'm path working every time I pull a card, because it just transports me right in there, in the middle of my own life at the same time. It's just so neat. There's Gaia, Earth Mom, Themis, Divine Justice, the Sphinx, Riddles, Boundaries, Feminine Power and Questions. There's Pythia. There's our Oracle at Delphi. Athena, my girl. Anywho, this deck is everything. So how could I not bring it up in my Greek section of my spring decks? So I know this is a use all the time kind of deck, but it needs mention because it's delightful. So Hellenic Oracle deck link will be down below if you are curious to watch a walkthrough of it or get one for yourself. Now, if I remember correctly, I haven't charged the most ever for it, just because originally it was just supposed to be for me. That was my intent when I made it, was like, I need this doesn't exist, I'm just gonna make it. And then a few people expressed interest, and now it is in the hands of many of you wonderful human beings, and I am forever grateful for that. So just know that if you are the proud owner of one of these, I am from the bottom of my heart very thankful that you took it into your life, because just the fact that you believed in something that I made so much, that you wanted to adopt it into your life and, you know, to take up a space in your brain, that means a lot to me, so thank you. But anywho, there you have it. That is my spring Decapalooza. That is all of the decks that I thought would align really nicely to the energies of spring. Let me know if any of these are on your to-use list, or perhaps on your, oh my gosh, now I need that list. Sorry in advance. Just know that there's a lot of interchangeableness going on here, for sure. Some of them are definitely, like, you don't need all of them. I don't need all of them, oh my gosh. But I'm excited to tuck in, and I'm so excited to get my feet and hands and face out into the garden again and really experience spring in the filthiest possible way, like covered in dirt and dirt under the fingernails forever. Kind of thing. So, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, and I will see all of you fine people in my next video. Bye.